Carried, thank you. Righto, the next one up is the first of a two-part Blue-Green Network Tranche 2 prioritisation, and just need to note too that there was a, and it was circulated earlier, there was an error in the table 2 in the report, and which has been amended and corrected. And so, Craig, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lovely to be with you all this afternoon, and I've got a wonderful bench to support me. So on my immediate right is Edward Ashby from Te Kaore Amaki, and Ed's been a key member of our project team supporting us on looking at these blue-green opportunities, particularly in his areas of interest being the west and the northwest. Also got Tom Mansell on my immediate left, who is Head of Sustainable Partnerships with Healthy Waters, and you all know Mace. I just want to address, before we kick off, one of the concerns raised by the Henderson Massey Local Board this morning around any budget reallocations that may need to happen. So I want to give you all reassurance that we won't be doing any budget reallocation without working very closely with the local board, but also we're very early on in the delivery process for these blue-green programs, and I would hope as we move through concept design, consenting, we'll be able to deliver some efficiencies through the design of the final projects, which is going to reduce the net cost to council. We've talked a lot about Category 3 land and the opportunity to resell some of those Category 3 projects, but what we haven't talked about is the land that could be generated through the blue-green networks by shifting dirt to actually create new landforms that don't currently exist. And so I think that's a whole revenue stream that we haven't even spoken about today, and that's going to be one that we will demonstrate in the confidential item where some of these opportunities exist. So I just wanted to put that on the table as an opportunity that's on top of the matter that Mace has been discussing. So I'd like Ed to maybe kick off, just to talk you through the role that we've... Get it the right way? Just to talk you through the way that this has not been a normal Healthy Waters project where we go and do something and then consult afterwards. We've had a huge engagement with both local boards and iwi right from the start of this project, and Ed can just talk to you with his personal experience. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou. Good to see you all again. Wearing my different hat today. Yeah, look, I'm here to support this kaupapa, and just to briefly speak to this, it has been a partnership approach from the beginning, basically before there was a program or the ideation of it, and that started with the map that you'll probably all remember with the points of the hotspots essentially around the region. And from a Kauro Amaki perspective, we worked with Healthy Waters team to identify those priority areas for ourselves, and then further went through a process of zoning in, narrowing down to the two before you today, which we've been involved with from the start in terms of the process, both in terms of where we are and some emerging designs and thinking, but also in terms of our boots on the ground with the community. So we've had a couple of recovery navigator staff out, in particular in Clover Drive, and doing work around Clover Drive in West Auckland with the homeowners and the renters as well, and also a community liaison person on the ground. So we've been going door knocking, talking to these communities. And that's so Clover Drive, obviously, and Swanson Run, West Auckland, and then over on the shore in the catchment too. In the case, in the West Auckland context, there's of course Cyclone Gabriel and the anniversary floods, which this is part of, but also these communities have been nailed, you know, basically for a period of a year or every 2 years prior to that as well. So some of these communities, it's actually a little bit unique. They just keep being hammered. Same families there. And so there's some really, really important sensitivities to that catchment in particular. It's quite a small one compared to on the North Shore. But I'm here to really, I guess, from an iwi lens, support this kaupapa because I've seen what it means on the ground in that catchment. You've got a hell of a lot of water running down from the Waitaki Ranges and then coming to a pinch point that just so happens to be named for the fast-flowing flooding waters. And then on the North Shore, you've got a catchment named after the basically 100 rivers coming together and being forced out of one small exit. So from an iwi perspective, we've been aware of this for a long time, but we're seeing the impact on the ground with the community, and we've been doing that work with the community. They really need this investment, and I'm also mindful of the conversations earlier about Crown funding. I think the opportunity to actually do something is now. Otherwise, that window is going to close. So, thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Ed. So, look, don't want to dwell too much on the numbers because you've already had them today from Mace, but just to set the context for this next conversation. Started off with 480 million. We've already allocated $54 million to the two Mangere projects, being Harania and Te Arata. 288 million transferred to Cat 3 buyout, so we've left with effectively the remaining budget of $138 million. So the exercise that we've been through in Healthy Waters is how best to spend that $138 million, which is the budget that remains with the Crown component attached to it, to deliver the best outcome for Aucklanders. So going back to the LTP and the work that we've done since the LTP, when we went out for original consultation on the full program, we'd identified a number of blue-green focus areas that we thought could be good areas to do projects in. And that's because these are areas that were hammered by the storms. They suffered a lot of damage, and they also align quite well with where most of the Cat 3 applications have come from. But also there are some significant opportunities for redevelopment, and I think the redevelopment that we're talking about is really, really important because a number of people that live in these communities that have been effectively removed from the communities want to get back into those communities, and so the concept of being able to return home through some new opportunity, I think, is something that's really quite available to us and something that we're really keen to focus on. So start off with these 12 areas, and we've already done some prioritisation. Whoops, that jumped ahead at a rate of knots. It's not supposed to do that. It's got lots of delicate steps. So I have to be much more surgeon-like in my treatment. Right, so the first decision we've already taken is that we have live projects up and running that's been through the full council process, and those projects have got fully signed off business cases. We're well into implementation on those two projects, and the project manager confirmed with me this morning that both those projects will be completed by June 2026. So we will be having ceremonies to open those projects in effectively 15 months' time. And those are both subject to Crown co-funding, so it will be good to get some early wins on the ground that relate to that Crown investment. There are a number of areas where, when you look at the reality of the Cat 3 buyouts, the need for a blue-green project has been substantially eliminated because the risk has been pretty much eliminated by the Cat 3 buyouts. And so in relation to Porterstream and Sandringham, Epsom and Meola and Cox's Creek, we think that the Cat 3, from any sort of rational prioritisation process, there's not the same opportunity there to do a blue-green project because the flooding risk has been removed by the purchase of those properties. Kumeu is a different kettle of fish. We do have a technical solution for Kumeu, but it is so expensive that it doesn't stack up under any commercial terms in terms of the cost to do the work versus the number of properties that would be protected. And I think there's ongoing conversations around that issue happening as we speak, particularly around the future plans for Kumeu and in that respect to that area. The two that we are wishing to put forward, and we'll discuss in a little more detail on the next slide, are even though the two that we believe provide the best opportunity in the short term to work in relation to the $138 million, Clover Drive in Swanson and the Wairau Creek in the Wairau Valley. And we'll come on to a little bit more detail on those two in a minute. The ones that we think are still highly valuable projects from a blue-green perspective, and we would propose that all of these be socialised through the next LTP, Opanuku, the Whau, Te Onga Stage 2 in Mount Roskill, and Whangapuri Creek in Pukekohe. Having said that, we've already done some work in the Whangapuri catchment. We actually had a project that was started before the storm events in early 2023, and that project is due for completion next year, and that's a new culvert at the downstream end of Whangapuri Creek. And so that is the start of the enabling work for Whangapuri Creek to enable the rest of the project to happen. So it's good that we have that component nearly in place. We're halfway across the road at the moment with that project. So that's, we believe, a logical way that we can meet the commitment that we had to the community through the LTP consultation and the ongoing consultation, because all of these projects have been socialised comprehensively with local boards and with local communities and with our iwi Māori partners as well. So we looked at it through a number of lenses. So one of the lenses that we looked for prioritisation was, and this is, I won't go into all the detail, it's in the report, was doing a multi-criteria evaluation around a whole range of objectives covering social, economic, and cultural and environmental. And so we did a multi-criteria evaluation. We also did a more traditional cost-benefit analysis. Now, the problem with a traditional cost-benefit analysis is that many of the benefits that you would normally apply a financial number to, in respect to blue-green projects, the language doesn't exist yet to put a monetary value on the way we value our waterways and the way that we value our parks. And I know that Mace has got some work that he's been leading, which is looking at the park dimension of what those assets are in respect of community well-being. But no work has yet been formalised around the way that we value our waterways in respect of how they may influence a cost-benefit project, how they may influence a blue-green project. Because at face value, you'd say, well, those are not good cost-benefit numbers, but the problem is that a number of the benefits have not been quantified in financial terms, and we're doing work on that at the moment. And the proposal would be that when we come back to you with the next iteration of the tranche 2 business cases, we're working closely with the council chief economist, Gary Black. The intention would be that we would have gone a long way further to actually monetarising the benefits attributable to the projects, because I would not intend to come back to you with a project that had a cost benefit that low, because I don't believe it should meet a council threshold of what a good cost benefit ratio looks like. So if you take the proposal as it stands at the moment, in the Swanson project, we are looking at improving the flood risk in some 80 properties. There's another 55 that have already been categorised as Cat 3, so that adds up to 135. The delta between the 135 and the 169 is 34. But there are some more Cat 3 properties still to come, and I'm confident that through the detailed design project we will be able to de-risk a number of those properties that haven't been assessed as having a reduced flood reduction at the moment. In the case of Wairau, the numbers appear to be quite different, and I need to explain in Wairau that 1,323 estimated properties in the floodplain is the whole of the floodplain, is the whole of the catchment. So it includes all of the commercial and industrial land as well as the residential land. So I think from memory, a third of that area is, a third of those properties are industrial and commercial properties as opposed to residential properties. And so we have 260 properties that are residential properties that have a reduced flood risk, and another 151 in the Cat 3. So that gets us to 411. And then not only that, there are a number of Category 3 properties that are also yet to be categorised, and on top of that, we believe that that number of 260 properties will increase as we get through detailed design. And so you can see when you apply that relative to the number of properties in the floodplain, a significant number of properties are going to benefit from the investment in the Wairau catchment. And then you can work through the maths for yourself in relation to Tuonga Stage 2 and Whangapuri. The works in Opanuku and Whau are at a slightly smaller scale, and so we haven't done such a detailed prioritisation, and it's proposed that that be done as part of our ongoing work in relation to the Tranche 3 that I referred to previously, because it's proposed that that would be socialised through the 2020, let's get my years right, 2027 LTP. And that's pretty much where we've got to at the moment, and very happy to answer any specific questions. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you. Someone want to move? Thank Shane, and seconded the Mayor. Okay, questions. Mayor one.
Okay, first of all, just to make sure I do support what you're trying to do here, Craig and Tom, but I do have some tricky questions about this, and it's all to do with the cost and the cost per house, and you're well aware that that doesn't look good enough just yet, and that's why you're trying to sort of, so that you can, to improve that, you've got to get more houses impacted or reduce the cost. And I look at, so first question is, under the Category 3 things, if we bought them, then why would we spend some money improving them? Or because if he's coughed up $1.5 million for each house and they've all been carted off and there's bare land there, why do you just automatically add those in? Or do we not buy them until you've fixed them?
So when we look at the reality on the ground of what's occurring in these two particular highlighted catchments, being Swanson, Clover Drive and Wairau, you end up with a situation where you have a whole lot of houses that have effectively potentially been removed, and without doing anything, I think you're going to find in Milford in particular, because of the low-lying nature of Milford, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to do anything that other than demolish those houses and look at some rebuilding opportunity. But in order to maximise that rebuilding opportunity, you need to create a much more manageable floodplain. That floodplain can only be generated through the investment in infrastructure to effectively do some daylighting and create some new waterways that don't currently exist in that area. And so we need to look at it in the context of what the final opportunity looks like in terms of both the existing risk to property, but also what the future prospects are to come up with a completely different design outcome, where you almost certainly would not build back at the same intensity of housing that we have at the moment, for a start. I would be very, very confident that we would be able to get a lot more houses back into the redeveloped land by looking at a different urban form, which would make a lot more sense from a flood mitigation principles as well. And so that's where I think we create the whole opportunity. So rather than foreclose on it now, my desire is that we be given the opportunity, if we can't come back with a valid business case, having done the more detailed design, fully understand what the yields are likely to be, how the whole mathematics would work out from a whole of council perspective, I think that's the time we need to be given the opportunity to create that, because we haven't fully scoped up what that potentiality looks like yet from a whole of project perspective.
Okay, so that you almost need another column there, that and there might be 182 or whatever, 151 category 3s, but you might end up with 253 sections to sell or something like that. And I think, so this is a bit naive, isn't it, at this stage?
I'd accept that in an ideal world, we would rather have come to you with more advanced work around that opportunity. The problem we've got right here, right now, is that we're backing into a very strict deadline with regards to getting agreement through the Crown arrangements. And so we're asking for a bit of latitude today to get these projects moving ahead, but at the same time to enable to put that last column into the analysis to exactly the point you're making, your issue.
Okay, then I look at the next question. It seems to me $11.5 million for design seems a hell of a lot to me, because in the outside world, that $11.5 million is usually associated with $250 million worth of capex. And some of these things are quite simple. I mean, when you're cleaning out a stream, it doesn't take a hell of a lot of design work. And maybe for the bridges, if we, instead of designing the bloody bridges, say, well, what's the design and build price for that bridge? Because if we go into design, we always build Rolls Royces, and when we're replacing a dud, we just say, let's have another bridge there that's actually got a clear span and see. So I'm trying to get the cost down to support what you're trying to do, because the recommendation here is that we approve in principle the Clover Drive catchment, and we've yet to have the debate in secrecy about it. So we've been asked to approve a cart before we've looked at the horse, which is a little worrying for me as well, and probably question the chairperson about that, about how we feel about that. So, but despite the fact that I sound a bit negative about this, I'm really keen on what you're doing. I'm very disappointed that the Category 3 thing has chewed up money that should have done more good elsewhere. So that's, so all in all, I'm in a grumpy mood about everything here.
Detail
for good reasons.
To the confidential item you wish, but I can give you an absolute categoric assurance. We will look to provide for the design, to support the consenting and get through a consenting strategy, and there may be some additional land that's required to make this whole thing work. We would look to do that as obviously as efficiently and as cheaply as possible.
Well, the thing is with consenting, and there's a question as well, is that seems a bloody high figure. We are the consenting authority. why the hell we'd want to piss ourselves off by not making that a bit easier is quite beyond me. And one of the reasons we're bringing Iki Panuku back in-house is to provide some property experience so that our planners who operate in a void of planning with blinkers on are actually make things easier. So if the chief executive ever gets to hear about what we're discussing today, one of the things I'll be saying is that consenting ourselves to do things, to fix things, strikes me as madness. I mean, is there any council who opposes what we're trying to do here? I'm sure there won't be. And yet we're going to go through a whole consenting process. I mean, this is amazing. It's like, surely we've consented this, that by saying we want to fix Clover Drive. Is any idiot at Clover Drive who wants to expose fixing Clover Drive? Well, and I'm sure they haven't enough money to hire a planner to oppose us. So I just want to make this easier. Too much money. So does it make sense? I mean, I can understand the cost of consenting where some guy's trying to whack up a confidential thing to make a whole pile of money. But I'm trying to rescue the city here. And consenting, we all really want this to happen. We want to make it easy for you.
So I think, Mr Chairman and Your Worship, in these projects we still have the benefits of being able to do an accelerated consent process through the Severe Weather and Emergency Response Act, as we did at Mangere. So that process is different, and it's as you would do for a public works type project, but even allows an accelerated program given some of the risks.
When I look at the list of things that have gone into the fast tracking, there's a fair few of those that you'd wonder about. I can't imagine why the fast tracking people wouldn't want to fast track fixing a whole lot of flooding areas. So I want you to take every clever think you can to get the costs down and get more done. And I'm going to keep the pressure on Mace so that you get more left over out of the money that he's blown on those bloody houses as well. So we as a group here, I think, need to help as much as possible. This is one of the good things we're doing. So I might be asking grumpy questions, but I am actually supportive of this. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Lovely. Shane?
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of the resolution, item D, just bringing it up, could we grab that one up on the screen? Is that all right? It might just help the question. But I suppose the question, and it's following on from Henderson Massey's presentation earlier, I'm just wondering if D is actually necessary, because we, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe I was advised earlier that you're working with the local board and it's premature to say, look, actually, we are going to be reprioritising things, So I wonder if we need to pass that, because you've still got to talk to the local board first, right? Or have I got that wrong?
Oh, we're working with the local board. They're part of the project team, so nothing happens that the local board's not fully over. The only question would be, at what stage do we need to make that decision around the deferral of other projects? If that could occur next financial year, for example, when we've done a bit more design work and got a bit better handle on the outturn cost of the project, it may change the quantum of that ask to some extent. So look, we're talking to the local board at the moment around so we've got some projects happening within the area that have some quite long time frames attached to them. So a lot of it is also going to come down to phasing and timing of investment. I personally think that it'd be good to be able to put a more detailed plan for, if we're talking about Henderson Massey and it refers to the Clover Drive initiative, we could actually put the total of that project on the table so we can have a proper conversation around relative benefits and trade-offs, etc. It's a little bit academic at the moment, because the numbers, we're still working through the numbers, etc. And we're still at a fairly early stage of design. We're at a concept design phase at the moment, and obviously numbers change as you move into more detailed design. You get more confidence around the final costs, etc., which may impact on the quantum of the number that we're asking for in this bit of the program.
Okay, look, that's all extremely useful. I guess just getting to the nub of it, because I would suggest that actually D could be passed by the local board. Doesn't necessarily need to be passed by us, large components of it anyway. If I were to respectfully suggest to the meeting that we actually just delete D and we just let the local board handle that, would that make sense? It seems to be in line with the advice that we've been given. I just don't want to presuppose this until we've had those discussions that you've mentioned.
Look, I'd need to defer to the finance team around the specific details and the timing of when we would need to make that call.
So if we could delete it for now and then kick it to the local board, I don't want to pass it if we don't have to. That's what I'm saying. We have to, that's cool, but it seems like those discussions need to happen first. Would that work? I'm not sure where to direct the question, whether it's to the chair or to staff.
I mean, I'd go back to the conversation we had earlier about suddenly changing things and without having proper advice. And so interested in what, he talked about having discussion with the finance team was what I picked up in that, and not making a decision until we've had that decision. But Barry, have you got any comments on it?
Thank you, Chair. Look, I was just going to make it clear or clarify recommendation A there, which is this is an approval in principle. This is not the overall approval. So we then go into confidentiality, and that's where the numbers are, and we then look at it in detail there. So what we're seeking here is approval in principle, which allows us to then go into the confidential section.
So if the
I'm sorry to take up the meeting with this. It's
are bad, we
probably
can
not
come
important
back.
to the
Yeah,
vast majority of people in the room. Could I just suggest will get changed to may? That covers my concerns fine. And D. Sorry to workshop, this is horrible use of time, I'm sorry about that. But if we change that word will in the last sentence to may, that really helps, I think. Yeah. Feel comfortable with that? Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
Thanks, Chair. So my questions, thank you for this, and I really appreciate how well laid out it is with the attachments. That's really helpful as well, the graphs and the maps and stuff. And I'll certainly be using those with my community, so thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, I get the bit about Cox's Creek and Epsom Meola being resolved hopefully by the Category 3 property acquisitions, and that makes sense to me. I get faux shifting potentially to the minor stuff. What I want to just understand a little bit better is the Te Aonga Stage 2, and noting that Stage 1 is not a response to recovery, like that happened some years ago, and Tom led that project, which is fantastic. We potentially won't be confirming delivery of that we are doing delivery of that because it's currently unfunded until the LTP process in 26-27. Have I understood that correctly?
That's our first opportunity to get some more budget into the process to support the monies that we don't currently have. If you go right back to the initial genesis of the $458 million, and the fact that now that most of that money has gone into Cat 3, so we're down to 138, I think it was.
Right.
In order to deliver Te Aonga, Whangapuri, and Opanuku and Whao, the money has to come from somewhere, and so we would need to put forward a proposal, but the key element that we haven't really discussed at any great extent is what some of these additional land development opportunities might look like to create some new revenue streams to go a long way towards reducing the impact of these projects on ratepayers.
And so, because one of the things here is a timing issue, right? That we might need to spend money on, for example, the Te Aonga 2 project, and then that will allow us to say these bits of land we can sell for development back to the market, but we'll have already spent the money, if you see what I mean, to make them suitable for development. So some of it's going to be about, we might get some money back, but we can't necessarily take that into account. Is that where
So
we're
we'll
going?
be doing enough work through our catchment management plans and our asset management plans to effectively scope up what's required to deliver these outcomes.
Okay,
Then they'll need to then feed into the mix with all the other council priorities and et cetera, et cetera. But I want to do that in the full knowledge of, and the column that the mayor's referred to, and I absolutely agree with them, that we're missing at the moment is this new revenue
yep,
column that I think has in some of these areas has a far greater presence than we've currently identified.
okay,
And so but in order to get to that stage, we've got to do some more work. And so we will use the time between now and when we kick off the LTP, and I imagine, just going from memory, if we're having an LTP that goes live in July 2027, you'd normally start off your consultation about August or September 2026, wouldn't you?
yeah, you've got that
feed into
timeline in the
process.
report,
So
yeah.
we need to know enough at that stage in order to go out and consult with the community around, this is what it looks like, this is what we want to do, this is how much it would cost, this is when we think we can logically deliver that outcome.
Okay, so I'm questioning around Te Aonga stage 2 because that's one I know about, but hopefully these are relevant for those other tranche 3s. So where we have set up already, I can't remember what title we gave them, but a community liaison group or whatever for some of these projects, are we sort of anticipating that they're sort of in abeyance for a little while? Are they going to have work that continues? I see on the timeline there is some work that continues, but there's also some gaps. So how's that going to be managed?
Thank you, Juliet. We're not dropping the pen on any of these. They're just going at a different pace. So
Yeah.
as Craig was saying with Te Aonga Stage 2, we need to carry on with the concept, with the modelling, the feasibility to have enough information to come forward. So on none of these, we're all working, but at different pace on tranche 2 and tranche 3.
That's really useful, Tom. Thank you. And finally, I guess just this is sort of probably more of an information. We actually historically have not been getting that we don't get invited to the local board briefing sessions that they get, and we have not been getting that information. Members, I asked reasonably recently, like in the last 2 weeks, can we start, I mean, we shouldn't attend them, those are spaces for local boards, that's fine. But quite often on the detail of these kinds of projects, they're getting information, you're telling us you've presented it to them, but we never saw it. And we just need to now be getting that information, potentially be able to watch the recording. And it's not unique to this tranche of work, this is just where it's become acutely obvious to me that I'm out of the loop. So can I just, I guess, clarify for you that some of the stuff you've shared with local boards about projects in particular ward areas, we haven't necessarily seen that. We will be in the future, because local board, governance directorate, whatever they're called now, have picked that up and will now be providing that information to us. But just so you're aware, if we seem to be asking repetitive questions you've already dealt with local boards, that might be part of the picture. Thank you, Chair. I'm leaving now, so you will have no more pesky questions from me, but really support this work. Thank you.
Lovely. Ken?
Sorry, just, and again, I know we're running short time, but I'm just a little bit concerned. I didn't quite understand Councillor Henderson's reasoning, and I just want to make sure that may doesn't extrapolate this out compared to will, which is a kind of an affirmative word. Are the staff happy that it isn't affecting their impetus by changing that to may? You know, what are we trying? Were we worried about the local board budget or something when we?
Look, that won't change anything that happens in the short time that we're talking about in relation to delivering the next stage of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you, team. You'll be back, no doubt, shortly when we're in secrecy. Oh, yep. So we'll get there. Now, comment and debate. Shane, obviously you have something to say.
Yeah, look, thanks, Chair. I'm holding everybody up, but I'll be very quick because I just want to firstly acknowledge Te Kaurua Maki. Thanks for coming in and for all of your work on this. I've got a few thank yous and I hope that's okay. Look, I just want to acknowledge the West Auckland flooding team because we wouldn't have got to this point with Clover Drive and with the Ranui and Swanson catchment without their work. Ordinary residents that are trying to get their own lives back on track, that are also representing people in Ranui and in Swanson and in Massey that are less able to represent themselves and deal with council and governing and the government, and I think that's really beautiful. I think what they've done is an inspiration. I think it's an example of what I like to call, I suppose, West Auckland spirit, right? Where we take care of each other, we help each other, where we have the ability to help each other, we do that, and we organise to get what we deserve. I just want to acknowledge the Henderson Massey Local Board. They spoke extremely well today. And as I said earlier, you know, they've been on the ground meeting residents. They were out on the night. One of the local board members literally saved someone from floodwaters. That's amazing. And they've been, you know, huge credit to the community in this issue for many years since Gabriel now. You know, I want to thank them for that. Also, Ed, just acknowledging, you know, thanks for pointing out this wasn't even the first flood in the northwest. It feels like we've been dealing with this issue since long before Gabrielle, and people were really hit hard then. So this kind of initiative is extremely important, extremely useful for Clover Drive and for the wider catchment. You know, I just also the Mayor points out trying to get costs down. I hugely support that. Anything we can do in terms of cutting those backroom costs, those consenting costs, so that we can deliver more on the ground for the entirety of Auckland, because we've had so many communities affected. I think that's really important. So I just encourage staff to look at that. And just while I'm continuing to thank people, I do want to thank the staff who've done an exemplary job, both in dealing with the communities affected, and there's been high emotion, understandably, with these residents. In many cases, some of their staff are doing other jobs that are unrelated to resilience, and doing those as well in a great way. So I just want to thank them for all they've done. I hope that these kind of results, when they go into place, that they can go past them and they can look at them and say, look, this is the sort of stuff that I worked on and I helped out with. That's really cool. You know, as mentioned earlier, I was at Clover Drive that night. I was directing traffic, met all those residents. I'm just so proud that we're delivering for them today. And lastly, I want to thank all of my colleagues. I want to thank you all for your support in this. It means a hell of a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Any other comments? None? All right. So we'll put this. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And against? Carried. Okay, item 14, status update. Someone like to move? Thanks, Richard. Second, Shane. Any discussion? Those in favour say aye. And against? Carried. Item 15, summary of our memoranda, workshops and briefings. Someone like to move? Thank you, Morris. Second, Sharon. Those in favour say aye. And against? Carried. We have no items of extraordinary business. Someone like to move? We go into excluded. Thanks, Greg. Second, Angela. Any discussion? Those in favour say aye. And against? Carried. Do we need to wait a few minutes? We just have to wait a few minutes. Yes. We'll be back at 5 o'clock. What a PM. To